You say?
No, because we see the evidence, Bill, and the evidence is that major metropolitan areas in this country that have the strictest gun control laws on the books, like Washington, D.C., like Detroit, like Chicago, have the highest gun murder rates in the entire country. We also know the converse, that in areas of the country where gun control is relatively lax, crime rates go down. An armed society is a safer society. But that's a different question than the police and stop and frisk.
But that's not necessarily true. In Texas, they have, you can carry, and it's fairly easy to acquire a gun legally. But Houston's, you got a dangerous place because you got a lot of that, what we were talking about, the neighborhoods that are out of control. And this is where all the crime begins. Do you believe stop and frisk, Holmes, is racial profiling?
The way they do it in New York is, I'll tell you the way, I'm not against stop and frisk, and neither was the court, by the way. The court was just the way it's being implemented in New York. For example, in Newark, where they are every month putting online who is being stopped, what race they are, and there's complete transparency. That's the way to do it. And civil libertarians
So you would have an officer who stops somebody do what?
Write down who you're stopping, write down the race of the person who is stopping, write down the reason. Is there articulable suspicion
I don't object to that. Do you object to that?
Well,
I don't object to that.
If there's the time and the opportunity in order to do that.
I think they have to make the time.
Well, look,
I think they have to make the time.
There's one part of this policy that nobody's talking about, which is the question part, which gets to your point. It's called stop, question, and frisk. When the cops pull somebody over or they pull somebody off the street and they first question them before they actually do the frisk. And in fact, only half of the people in New York City, the blacks and Latinos in particular, that they are pulling aside to question actually go through the frisking part of this. And by the way, the U.S. Supreme Court in 1980
yeah, it's legal. That's why Shinley couldn't throw it out.
Found it constitutional.
She would have thrown it out if she could, but she couldn't because the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled on it.
The question part is integral to this process, and not everybody gets
constitutionally, you have to have articulable suspicion before you stop somebody.
And they do.
But then write it down.
They do.
Explain.
If you come out of a drug house or you're hanging around for 4 hours and not doing anything, the cop's going to come over. But I don't think it's racial profiling, Holmes, as much as neighborhood profiling.
Well, they're going. What neighborhoods are they going to? Black neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods.
But where would you go? If 89% of all the accused killers are minorities, where would you go?
I understand the point. That's why I'm saying,
excellent.
Then write it down. Do what they're doing in Newark, which is a large black population.
So it's neighborhood profiling, not racial profiling.
And write it down. Write down the articulable suspicion. Write down what you're doing.
I submit to you that if Russian emigres were shooting people down at the rate that young black males are, that the cops would be flooding the zone in the Russian emigres.
In Washington, D.C., they don't have stop and frisk. There was a 43% reduction in crime since 2002. Los Angeles, 50% reduction in violent crime and murders since 2002.
But New York, a 12% Los Angeles under Bratton did pretty much what they did here.
No stop and frisk. They don't have stop and frisk.
Well, they don't call it that.
That's not what they're doing.
No, you're wrong, as usual. They call it intervention, street intervention. It's not called. See, stop and frisk, that was a bad PR move. They should not have named it stop and frisk. They should have named it encounter and explain.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all
encounter and explain.
Then
it would have been okay.
Right.
The Muppets could have went on and explained it. Yeah. Encounter and explain. Do you have
say
a gun?
I'm wrong, but we actually agree about this, even though you say I'm wrong as usual. We actually
you're wrong about L.A. because they do the same thing. They just named it something else.
Let me make a point, though, about the minority issue. First of all, when you talk to most minorities in these high crime areas, they want stop, question, and frisk because it's their lives being
saved. The polls say most minorities are for it.
They are for it, and also keep in mind that most of the police force going into these high crime areas are also minorities. Right. So these are minorities protecting minorities.
I am now giving permission for every police department in the United States of America to change stop and frisk to encounter and explain, E&E.
You're welcome, America.
Right.
I think you've become a liberal with that kind of language.
Listen, I don't care. I just want to stop at death, all right?
Yes,
I feel so sorry for that 15-year-old girl and her family. Oh, God.